Hello everybody. So now we shall discuss about the NEET crash course, some of the practice problems or practice questions from all of these chapters, starting with transport in plants. So movement of water from one cell to another usually takes place through. So remember, water always flows from one cell to another, mostly through osmosis, and something which drives osmosis is a gradients of water potential. So always remember, water flows from a higher water potential to a lower water potential. So please remember, water potential is the measure of the free energy of water molecules. The answer is water potential gradient. When a cell is fully turgid, which of the following will be 0? Now, we almost assume that when a cell is fully turgid, we say that the water inside the cell, that is the cell sap, has become completely hypotonic, isn't it? So, because it has received all the water has entered into the cell, and therefore the water or the cell sap inside the cell has become hypotonic. Hypotonic means it's become dilute. That means what will near 0, it is not that it will become 0 completely, but something which nears to the value of 0 is the water potential, because you all know that in a hypotonic solution or a dilute solution, the water potential is the highest, and the highest value of water potential is 0. The water potential and osmotic potential of pure water. See, osmotic potential is nothing but the solute potential, the degree by which the water potential comes down when you add a solute to it. But here they have mentioned pure water, so you are not adding any solute to it. So both water potential and the solute potential will be 0. When water moves through a semi-permeable membrane, what pressure develops? Or what is the pressure that you need to apply to prevent the flow of water from one solution, that is from dilute solution to concentrated solution? The pressure that we need to apply is referred to as the osmotic pressure. Osmotic pressure is directly related to how concentrated a particular solution is. Opening and closing of stomata is due to change in the turgor pressure of the guard cells. So I hope you know that when the guard cells become flaccid, the stoma closes. When the guard cells become turgid, the stoma opens. Stomata of the plant open due to, according to one of the theory, the K plus H plus, the potassium pump theory, they say that due to the influx of potassium ion, there is endosmosis, that is potassium moves in and water follows, and when water enters the guard cells become turgid, and that is what leads to the opening up of the stomata. Potometer works on the principle. Now, potometer is an instrument, or it is an apparatus or a setup that is used to demonstrate the process of transpiration. So as the plant undergoes transpiration, you can see the change in the level of water. So it works on the principle that is based on the amount of water absorbed by the plant is equal to the amount that is transpired. And it also is telling us that how does the plant absorb water from the roots, because it is driven by a pull that is created by the process of transpiration, which we know now as the transpiration pull. Okay? The rupture and fractionation do not usually occur. That means the water that is passing through the xylem, there is no formation of bubbles, or there is no breakage of the water column. They're saying that the water column that is passing through the xylem, if you remember, during transpiration, water passes as a continuous column up the xylem vessel. What makes sure that this water column is continuous and it does not break? It is the cohesion and the adhesion property of the water. The cohesion means the water molecules exhibit intermolecular forces of attraction. Adhesion means between the water molecules and the polar surfaces, such as the wall of the xylem vessel. Okay? If flowers are cut and dipped in dilute NaCl solution, then if you say it is dilute NaCl solution, it is not a concentrated solution, so it can be considered as hypotonic in comparison to the cell that is sitting, the cell of the flower. Say this is the nucleus of the cell and this is the vacuole. So inside the cell the conditions are hypertonic in comparison to the outside. So what can you expect? Water will move from the outside to the inside, because water always flows from dilute solution to the cell sap, which is now concentrated. So hypertonic cell sap in comparison to the outside fluid, and therefore water flows in, and the inward diffusion of water molecules into the cell from the surrounding is referred to as endosmosis. So we say that endosmosis takes place. Active K plus exchange mechanism, wherever you have to remember that there is a theory proposed by that explains the opening and the closing of stomata, and according to this theory potassium ion plays a very important role, and this was proposed by a scientist by name Levitt. Now moving on to the next chapter, that is mineral nutrition. Molybdenum is involved in plant metabolism in nitrate reduction. Please remember, molybdenum is an important component, or it needs to be there for some of the important enzymes to work. For example, two enzymes, nitrate reductase and nitrogenase, are the two enzymes for which molybdenum is essential. So obviously the function is reduction of nitrate. The major role of phosphorus in plant metabolism is it is involved in generating metabolic energy, because you all know that adenosine diphosphate is added with a phosphate in order to make the energy currency of the cell, which is the ATP, as a result of which it is required for the generation of. And what do you call such a reaction where you are adding phosphate to a substrate? When you add phosphate to a molecule, we call such reactions as phosphorylation reactions. So one of the most important function of phosphate in the plant cell is phosphorylation reactions. Nitrogen fixing bacteria in the soil was first discovered by a scientist called S.N. Winogradsky. So this is just a factual question. Which of the following element is absorbed by the plants directly? In the form of ions, plants directly absorb boron. Okay, in the form of borate ions, BO33 minus or B4O7 2 minus. Deficiency of iron, it causes intervenal chlorosis. So please remember, chlorosis means yellowing of the leaf. Very, very important. Iron is required for the synthesis of chlorophyll. Although iron is not a part of the chlorophyll molecule, magnesium is a part of the chlorophyll ring, the ring molecule in chlorophyll, but iron is very essential for synthesis of chlorophyll. A trace element is something that is required in very, very small amounts by the cell. So it is something which is required in very minute amounts, and even though it is required in minute amounts, it plays a very important role in the metabolism of plant cells. Which ion is essential for maintaining the permeability of the cell membrane? Calcium is very, very important in maintaining the functioning of the cell membrane, and one of the principal functions of cell membrane is the semi-permeable nature. An element that plays an important role in increasing the hardness and helping the maintenance of the turgidity of the cell. We just saw one of the ions play a very important role in the opening and closing of stomata. So it is the potassium ion. Potassium ion maintains the anion and cation. It's a cation with a positive charge. So it maintains the anion cation balance in the cell. It is also responsible for the opening and closing of the guard cell. It makes the guard cell turgid, and that's how the stoma opens. Phosphorus deficiency in plant. Now, what happens due to phosphorus deficiency in plant? Phosphorus is a very important component of protein, and therefore it is involved in protein synthesis, and as a result you have to remember it brings about reduction or retardation in protein formation. So please remember, phosphorus plays a very important role in the process of protein synthesis. Aeroponics, actually aeroponics is you don't use soil in order to cultivate the plant. It is soil-less cultivation. But actually when you grow the plant in a mineral solution, it is called hydroponics. Aeroponics means you spray the liquid component in the form of a mist. So it's like the plants are not completely immersed in water also. It's like they're grown in a humid environment, in a misty environment, but there is absolutely no use of soil here. So aeroponics is a soil-less cultivation of plants. Most of the plants obtain their nitrogen from the soil in the form of nitrates, NO3-. So that is what these nitrifying bacteria do. The nitrifying bacteria convert the ammonia in the soil into nitrite. They oxidize ammonia into nitrite and nitrite into nitrate, and nitrate is made available to the plants. Of course, once the plants take up nitrate, most of it is reduced into ammonia in the plant body, which is then protonated into ammonium, and it is used up in making proteins and amino acids. So please remember, plants obtain nitrogen principally in the form of nitrates from the soil. Then zinc is an activator of. Now zinc acts as an activator of dehydrogenase enzymes. Among the following, succinic acid dehydrogenase is one of the examples. As a result, the answer is option C. Which of the following association fix nitrogen through non-nodulation? That means root nodules are not formed. Roots of maize in association with spirillum, digitaria in association with spirillum, coralloid roots with cyanobacteria such as Anabaena in the root of cycas, which is a gymnosperm. So all of these is the answer. The correct answer is all of these. In all of these you see that there is an association formed between the roots of higher plants and certain bacteria without formation of swollen structures such as nodules. Bacterium, which reduces nitrates in the soil into nitrogen. Now some of the nitrates in the soil is liberated as free nitrogen and it is released into the atmosphere. This is the job of a denitrifying bacteria such as Pseudomonas. So the process is referred to as denitrification. So please remember, the process where nitrate is reduced into nitrogen and it is liberated into the atmosphere is called denitrification. This is the job of bacteria such as Pseudomonas and Thiobacillus. Let us match the following now. Sulfur is a component of amino acid methionine. Zinc is required for synthesis of a plant growth regulator called auxin. Magnesium, like I told you, is the part of the ring structure of chlorophyll molecule. Molybdenum is required for the functioning of two enzymes, nitrate reductase, and one of them is nitrogenase. Okay, so A3, B4, C1 and D2, the answer will be the second option. Moving on to body fluids and circulation. At rest, 60% of your body's blood, where do you think it is present? 60% of your body's blood at rest is normally collected, is normally held in your veins. So such a huge amount of blood is when your body is in a state of rest, it is held in your veins. Compared with those of systemic circulation, arteries of pulmonary circulation, they have a lower blood pressure, correct? They have less elastic tissue and wider lumens. They carry blood that contains less oxygen. So it is all of these in this case, because all these options are pertaining to the blood vessels which carry the blood away from the heart to the lungs. Okay, so remember that it is a shorter circulation and it has pulmonary arteries, and all these are correct answers for how pulmonary circulation is different from systemic circulation. What are the three main arterial branches that emerge from the aortic arch? From the aortic arch, you have the most important branches which emerge, that is the brachiocephalic trunk. For example, imagine this is your heart, and from your heart, you have the systemic artery that arises and goes towards your left side. It is not your left and your right. You're looking at somebody's chest, somebody's heart. So this is that somebody's right and somebody's left. So the aorta takes a branch to the left, and before it branches, it gives out 1, 2, and 3 branches before it takes a turn and it forms an arch. The first branch is called the brachiocephalic artery. The second branch is called the common carotid on the left side, and the third branch is called the left subclavian artery. So 3 branches, that is brachiocephalic, left common carotid, and left subclavian, is formed by the aortic arch. That is, I hope you all know, this is the systemic trunk, and the systemic trunk emerges from this part of your heart. Which chamber of your heart? This is the left ventricle. So it emerges from the left ventricle, it arches upwards, and where it is arching, there it gives out 3 major branches. So the answer is the second option. The internal carotid does not. Now they say that the internal carotid does not supply blood to the neck, the pharynx, the larynx, the mandible, the face, etc. Now, the much of these are actually supplied by external carotid. Internal carotid actually takes the blood to the brain. Okay, so option A is not a function of internal carotid artery. Which 3 arteries branch from the celiac trunk of the which supplies to the digestive organs? So in the celiac trunk, what is the celiac trunk? In your abdomen, you have the abdominal artery. From the abdominal artery, an artery branches out, and this branch which comes out of the abdominal artery is called the celiac trunk. The celiac trunk gives out one of the branches which supplies to your stomach. This is called the left gastric, and one of the branches go to the spleen. It takes blood to your spleen, and this is referred to as the splenic branch. And then the major one, which is on the right side, it takes the blood to the liver and also to the duodenal part of your stomach and the first part of your small intestine, that is the duodenum. Okay, and in fact, from the point where the duodenal branch, this is the common hepatic artery, from here another branch originates and it comes all the way, and again it supplies to the stomach. Okay, so remember, this is the artery that supplies to the stomach, and this is an artery that supplies oxygenated blood to the spleen, and this artery which is coming down is called the common hepatic artery. That is, it is taking the blood to your liver. So liver, stomach, and spleen. And this branch which comes out of this is called the major artery which I have shown here. This is referred to as the abdominal artery. Okay, the dorsal aorta in your chest continues down as the abdominal aorta, and that branches off into this small branch, and this small branch is called the celiac artery. Okay. Yeah, so I'm very sorry. Here is the correct answer here. Left gastric, because the stomach is on the left side. Splenic, and just now I mentioned there common hepatic. So please make this correction. The correct answer is left gastric. It is not common gastric. Okay, it is left because as you can see in the diagram I have shown, the stomach is on the left side of the body. Remember, this is the person whose stomach you are looking at, whose artery you're looking at. So this is this person's left and this is this person's right. It is not the observer's left and right, it is the subject's left and right. So considering that it is the left gastric, the splenic and the common hepatic branches which are originating from the celiac artery. Cardiac muscles contract. They contract very quickly, but they do not get fatigued because they are in direct contact with blood and they have enormous amount of mitochondria in them. Okay. Eustachian valve is a valve that is found in the right auricle of your heart. It is actually the valve of your the opening of the inferior vena cava. And where do you find the inferior vena cava? You find it in the right auricle of the heart. In mammals, the opening of the post cava is nothing but inferior vena cava. Just now we discussed the opening of the inferior vena cava in the right auricle is guarded by the Eustachian valve. First heart transplant was performed by Christian Bernard. In mammals, veins differ from arteries in possessing internal valves. Veins have valves inside. An artery is thick-walled and in which the blood flows under very high pressure. That's the reason why arteries have a very thick wall. Carotid labyrinth contains receptors which are meant to detect your blood pressure variation, and such receptors are called baroreceptors. Carotid labyrinth refers to the carotid sinus. Now, carotid sinus is present in one of the major arteries of your neck. It is called the internal carotid. The point where the carotid bifurcates at the base of the internal carotid, you can find this sinus which is richly supplied with receptors which are very, very sensitive to blood pressure. Which of the following organs can be called as a sort of a blood bank? The spleen, because spleen is rich in blood. It filters your blood, it purifies your blood, it also destroys the worn out RBCs in your blood. If the spleen is removed from the body of an adult man, then filtration of dead RBCs will stop, because spleen is called the graveyard of the RBCs. Now moving on to the last chapter, that is excretory products and their elimination. In the glomerulus, we have discussed the afferent arteriole is thicker or broader in comparison to the efferent arteriole. If excess water passes out from the tissues, if your tissues lose their water because the kidney is not reabsorbing it, obviously the person will produce lot of urine, frequent urination, because his cells are losing water. Obviously the cells will shrivel and die because the cells have lost all their water. And when a cell loses water, you all are aware that does it become turgid or flaccid? It becomes flaccid. Which blood vessel carries least percentage of urea? So where did urea get removed? In the kidney. And which is the blood vessel which removes or drains out the blood from the kidney? Renal vein. So the blood coming out of the kidney is completely purified of urea, so it will have the least amount of urea in it. Which one of the following is a disease of the kidney? Bright's disease. Now, Bright's disease is today referred to as the glomerulonephritis. The infection and the inflammation of glomerulus, which is the tuft of capillary present inside the Malpighian body or the renal corpuscle, is called glomerulonephritis. What will happen if one kidney is removed from the body? Nothing will happen. The person will survive and remain normal. Of course, the person has to make certain lifestyle changes, otherwise the person will survive and remain normal. Blood dialysis is also called artificial kidney machine. The hemodialyzer that we spoke of in the synopsis is an artificial kidney machine. Uremia is an excretory disorder in which, now uremia is where there is excessive accumulation of urea in the blood. Okay, so obviously the concentration of the urea will become so high in the blood because the kidney is not functioning properly. That is because of the renal failure. Ornithine cycle is also referred to as the urea cycle, where urea is manufactured. It happens inside your liver, and during the ornithine cycle, some of the toxic substances are eliminated from your system, like carbon dioxide and ammonia, which are ultimately converted into urea, from where it is sent to the kidney, and the kidney will filter this urea from your blood. The function of renin is the hormone of kidney. We saw that renin is produced in response to a fall in the blood pressure from the juxtaglomerular cells of the afferent arteriole. It helps in the degradation of a blood protein which is called angiotensinogen. So you should learn the RAAS pathway in order to be able to completely understand. The first step is breakdown of angiotensinogen into angiotensin 1 by this hormone and enzyme called renin, secreted by the juxtaglomerular cells of afferent arteriole. Duct of Bellini is nothing but the lower parts of the collecting duct. And where does the collecting duct drain out? As the collecting duct receives more and more nephrons, it becomes broader and broader. It is called the duct of Bellini. It opens at the tip of the renal medulla, which is referred to as the renal papilla. Which one of the following is correct with reference to hemodialysis? Now you know that in hemodialysis, you are sending in the blood of the patient who is suffering from kidney failure into a tube, a dialysis unit which has a coiled cellophane tube. Cellophane is semi-permeable, immersed in a liquid solution called dialysing fluid or dialysate. So obviously the answer is it has a coiled cellophane tube. As the blood passes through the tube, the surrounding fluid has no urea, so urea diffuses from the blood into the surrounding fluid, and finally the blood coming out of the hemodialyzer is pure. Okay. The major nitrogenous waste in respective animals, the correct option is uric acid in parrot, because it's a bird, insect, cockroach, and reptile, lizard. Even land snails eliminate uric acid in the form of pellets. Okay, in the form of pellets. So it is in birds, in insects, in reptiles, and land snails. We see that they predominantly excrete their nitrogenous waste in the form of uric acid. So we call them as uricotelic. Which one of the following statement is correct with respect to salt water balance inside the body? When water is not available, camels do not produce urine, but they store urea in the tissues, because when water is not there, they cannot afford to give away that water in the form of urine. Even the water is so precious to them that they cannot eliminate the urea. So temporarily they store the urea in their body tissues. Which one of the following groups of structures or organs has similar function? Nephridia of earthworm, Malpighian tubules of cockroach, and nephrons or urinary tubules of rat. Did you notice all of them are excretory in function? So all of them have a same function to perform, and therefore we say that they all have a similar function, but they are modified slightly, and of course in terms of their complexity also they are different, and they are seen from lower organisms like earthworm to the higher organisms like mammals, which is rat. So that is about the option B. So with this we shall complete the practice questions for 4 major chapters in this particular session of NEET crash course. Thank you.